Well, I guess first of all, Sean, I think the big thing kind of this week is looking to Jägermeister Cup.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know how much you've talked about cups and their importance, but looking directly at the opponent with Forward Madison, what can you tell me about what you know and what you're looking to do this weekend?
I know historically they're a good team in the division they play in, and I know that the division between the two leagues has got closer. The standards, pretty good now in terms of closing the gap. So we'll have a tough game. We'll have a tough game against them. We'll have a tough game against One Knoxville, and then obviously the other two games we're a bit more familiar with. But from our point of view, the way the rules are set out, we've got to go and try and win every game that we're playing in this competition. And we set ourselves up to try and win every game. But I think it's really important, that we get maximum points on the road for this one, for sure.
I was doing a little research with Bruno, obviously playing in this competition last year and going back and watching the highlights of his games. It's like every single game you turn on in the cup, he was scoring.
Yeah.
How much did kind of his form in this competition, catch your eye last year?
Well, it was good because it got him a little bit of recognition, I think did he get 9 goals in it or something? So it was interesting that he chose that competition to get his goals. Long may that continue, I hope. But no, we'd been monitoring throughout the season, so they were just an add-on that was getting them goals. I think what Bruno showed us in pre-season and from the start of the season is that he's very flexible in the positions he can play, and that just shows you that he's got that sort of natural ability and understanding to go and play in any role that we ask him to play in.
Obviously, you want to win the group, but if you don't, wild card is an option, and with the tiebreaker being goals for, is that something you've kind of talked to the group about? Obviously, you want to score as much as you can.
Yeah.
Anytime, but how much are you kind of thinking about that?
I think because we've got 6 teams in our group, it's an unbalanced schedule, so it's going to be difficult for us, to understand what exactly is needed in the tie-break, From our point of view, I think if we were to win the games, then I think obviously we'd go through, and then goals come into play, but then there's the extra point for the penalty shootout, so there's a lot of things that will come into play when we get to it. I think we keep it simple and we just go for the win.
Can I ask you about the penalty shootout? Because it's kind of, it's weird because usually you only do those when it's kind of like a do or die situation. And so when it's not necessarily that, if you get the penalties and it's just an extra point, does that take a little bit of pressure off and make them easier almost? Or is it kind of, you just have to, focus more?
I think I've watched it in the MLS Next Pro, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of it. Getting an extra point for winning a penalty shootout when everybody knows that the penalty shootout sometimes is very similar to a toss of a coin. So I don't know if it's pressure on or pressure off, but I do know that extra point might mean something. So when it comes to penalty shootouts, my message will be the same to the players that I always say in penalty shootouts: make your mind up, don't change it, and save what you can save.
Speaking of messages to the players, when you're on the road against lesser opposition, what is usually kind of the mentality that you want to kind of put onto them in those situations?
Lesser opposition's a real sort of contentious issue in my mind. Because are we the lesser opposition when we go on the road and play against some of these other teams in the USL Championship? That would be the question that I would ask, and I don't think we are. And I don't think the gap between us and the opponent would determine to where we are lesser opposition than us, because we wouldn't use that excuse when we went and played somebody else in the Championship. So we're going to stick to it and stick to our normal routine, and we're going to make sure that we prepare properly, get the players as motivated and as confident as we can get them, and then they go out and give the best, and hopefully that best is good enough.
Wanted to ask you about an injury update as well. Obviously, we didn't see Ali last week after he went out in the Open Cup. Any update you can provide on him?
Yeah, he had a slight hamstring strain, so he's going to be out for this weekend, and then he'll be in for the following game.
Any other updates injury-wise?
Romario's doing well. Brem's regaining his fitness. So they're two that are going to be important for us down, when we get into the middle of the season and all these games start piling up. So we're really pleased that that's gone well for both of them too, and it's just a case of now building fitness.